YouTube, my name is Danica and today I want to talk to you about some picture books. As I've said in other videos, I work in the kids section at a bookstore and I've been trying to learn a little bit more about more diverse picture books, especially so that I can order them in and recommend them more. So when I saw that my library had a kit of First Nations picture books, I put a hold on it and it finally came in. Came in this tub, and in the tub were 8 picture books as well as a rhyme booklet, a bear puppet, and 2 CDs of different First Nation songs. So I'll show you what books were included and I'll tell you a little bit about what I thought of them. So the first one is Mama Do You Love Me by Barbara M. Joosse. This was one of my favorite picture books as a kid, so I have a little bit of a bias towards it. But it isn't by a First Nations artist or author, as far as I know. So it isn't exactly what I'm looking for. So if you haven't read it, this is just a story about a little girl and her mom, and she keeps asking if her mom would still love her if she did all of these things, or if she turned into a polar bear, or how long would her mom love her. And it's a really great little story. I love these illustrations, especially the muskox there. That's my favorite. I do love that they used a Inuit setting for this book because it really could have been set anywhere, but the Inuit setting in talking about musk oxes and mucklucks and dog sleds and things like that makes it for a much richer story. Also, at the end of the book there's a little glossary of different words and a little bit more information on each of them, as well as talking about the Inuit people, and I appreciated that this talks about how the book is set, how Inuit people lived many years ago, but in these glossaries it talks about how modern Inuit people live. I really appreciated how it's showing that the Inuit people are not products of the past. They are real people who are continuing to live in modern times in modern ways. So even though this isn't really what I'm looking for from this sort of kit, it's still a favorite of mine, but I might be biased. Next we have How Raven Stole the Sun by Maria Williams. And this is both by and illustrated by Native artists and authors. It's also apparently part of a series of books called Tales of the People, which are all Native stories by Native authors, illustrated by Native people, which is definitely something I want to look into because I really liked this book. It's obviously the story of how Raven stole the sun. The illustrations are interesting because they're kind of delicate, intricate illustrations for a picture book. They're not the sort of bold illustrations that I'm used to from picture books, but they're really beautiful. As you can tell, there's quite a bit of text per page, so this is definitely something for a little bit of an older kid, probably 3, 4, 5 I would say. And at the back is also some more information on the things included in the story. This is sponsored by a museum, the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. So it makes sense that the back has pictures of different artifacts and a little bit more historical information. Again, this is one I really liked and I'll definitely be checking out the series for more. Next is Totem Tale by Vanasse, a tall story from Alaska. This is another book that doesn't have a native author or illustrator, and the story is about the different animals in this totem pole coming to life and then having to go back onto the totem pole but fighting about which order they should be in and who should be on top. It's a cute little story and I do love these illustrations. I do like that at the end Raven explains how the totem tells a story, and that's why they're all in the order that they are. So when they go back into their totem, they're a story that will last forever. But I do sort of wonder about a non-native author illustrator sort of cartoonifying these totem poles. So it is a cute story, but again, not exactly what I'm looking for. Next is Mayock the Grizzly Bear, a legend of the Sechelt people, illustrated by Charlie Craigan. So this is a book illustrated by a Sechelt illustrator, and as you could guess from the cover, it combines these really bold illustrations as well as these a little more detailed sort of woodcut illustrations. All the illustrations are in black and white and they do have big chunks of text on almost every page. So this would be definitely for a little bit of an older kid, or at least a kid that has a lot of patience. Because of the combination of the big chunks of text and the sort of simple illustrations, I feel like this would be a little bit intimidating for a small kid. But I really feel like this book could have been put together better. I do love that it alternated between these different illustration styles. I think the publisher could have made it look a little bit more appealing and maybe split up the text some, even just had a more appealing cover. I did like the story as well, which is talking about an elder in the Sechelt nation who is going to name his grandson and begins telling this story to explain his grandson's name, and the story is of Mayock the grizzly bear. So I feel like this book had more potential than it actually lived up to, which is sad because I think a little bit of a redesign could have made this a lot better. So next is the book Eagle Boy by Richard Lee Vaughan. This is another book, unfortunately, without a native author or illustrator. It's a retelling of a Pacific Northwest native story, and I actually love these illustrations. I think they're beautiful. Really bold and bright for kids, but also detailed, and I think one that adults would appreciate as well. The story is about Eagle Boy, an orphan in his village who makes friends with the eagles that the rest of the village dislike for taking fish. When the area begins to run out of food, the village leaves and they leave Eagle Boy behind. His eagle friends help him out, and eventually Eagle Boy is kind of the savior of the village. I really liked the story and I love the illustrations, but again, not exactly what I'm looking for. Next is The Great Ball Game, a Muskogee story by Joosse Bruchac. This one does have a native author. It is a Muskogee version of a legend of the animals and the birds having a ball game together. This legend has it as stickball, which is similar to lacrosse, and the illustrations are in this sort of paper collage style. Honestly, it's not my favorite illustration style, but that's completely personal preference. I do really love the story, which is about how when the animals split up into sides, it's divided by animals with wings and animals with teeth, and the bat ends up sort of stuck in the middle, so when the birds reject him from their side, he becomes quite an asset to the animal side, and this is also the story of why birds migrate in the winter. Next is another book by Joosse Bruchac, The First Strawberries. This is probably my favorite of the stories in this collection. It's really sweet. It's about the first people on Earth, a man and a woman, who are married, and when the man is somewhat rude to his wife, she just walks off and refuses to listen to him anymore. He instantly regrets his harsh words and starts following her, trying to apologize, but she just keeps walking. So the sun helps out by putting berries in her path to try to slow her down. So you've got the creation of blueberries, blackberries, and then at the end the creation of strawberries, which finally stops the woman. And he apologizes and they share the strawberries together. I really liked these illustrations. I love that throughout the book there are pages that just have full-page illustrations without any words. And I loved the story of this book, just the story of mutual respect. So that was probably my favorite one to read. And the last book is the one that had my favorite art of all the ones included, and that is Ancient Thunder by Leo Yerxa. He is an Ojibwe author, and he is also the illustrator of this book. It is absolutely beautiful. He uses painting paper to look like it's leather, so you have dresses and shirts in the middle of the page with the rest of the page kind of matching that. I found the layers in these illustrations absolutely beautiful, and this one is definitely one I would highly recommend. So those were the 8 native picture books that came in this kit. I really enjoyed reading through these. I'm so glad that my library had these. I've been trying to research different First Nations picture books, and it's been pretty difficult to try to find good ones, and most of the ones in here I hadn't even heard of, and they're excellent. So I'm really glad that my library has this sort of resource. So if you're looking for diverse picture books, or native picture books in particular, I would recommend that you take a look at some of these authors. I'll link them in the description below, and thank you for watching. Bye!